Miss Liz, tea time, yeah. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Yeah, Miss Liz, tea time, yeah. Making a difference, one cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, welcome. We are back and we are here for the last tea time already. We have done two amazing shows already today, and we're going to end it with an amazing topic. But before we get started, we're going to do the disclaimer. We're going to do a bio. We're going to get all of that good stuff in there. So grab your tea, grab your coffee, grab a glass of beer, or grab a glass of wine, whatever you would like to drink. It is not a beverage that you need to drink tea on Tea Time with Miss Liz. So I want to just let everybody know that I really appreciate all the support and shares that you've been doing for Tea Time and all of the outreaches. It really, truly is making a difference. So let's just keep doing that. Let's just keep sharing all of these incredible tea times. But tonight I am joined with a beautiful lady who has a beautiful heart, as you can see in the intro video, has had over 70 children in the foster care as a foster caregiver. So we're going to talk about foster care. We're going to talk about adoptions. We're going to talk about a lot of tough subjects tonight. So if this tea time is going to trigger you, I will not be offended if you do not tune in tonight. So again, I want to thank everybody for the support. So let's get into the disclaimer. Let's get into a bio and let's spill a good, strong cup of tea with a beautiful lady from Australia. That's right. We got Australia in the house tonight. Disclaimer for Miss Liz's Tea Time live show. Miss Liz is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, may bring forth dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include a discussion for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to note that the show is engaging in discussions forms only to offer and inspire awareness and connection and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in tonight's show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that this show is not made for you at this time, I respect your wishes and I will see you at a later show, later date and time. And again, all tea times this year in 2023 are done on Thursday unless they are a rescheduled tea time. So now I want to introduce the amazing Irina Castellano. I think she told me just before we came on, so I'm going to get her to tell me when she gets out here again. But she's coming in all the way from Australia. So it's really early in the morning on Friday there, and we're here Thursday. So Irina, I'm not saying it right. I know I'm not. And I'm going to get frustrated with myself. Irina is an authorized foster carer who's dedicated to providing safe homes for vulnerable children, especially now that we have hundreds of kids sitting in motel rooms as we do not have enough safe homes for them to go to. Her work has been featured in a dozen of podcasts, a book, articles, as well as radio interviews like with SBS German radio and the Meaningful Monday radio show. She's also runs the nationality a certified foster care program and adoption seminars. Using her using her over 20 years of experience, Irina provides awareness and education around all aspects of fostering. She offers professional one on one support, training, and guidance to all potential foster carers and hopeful adoptive parents. She is on a mission to find more careers and to work with IVF clinics and their unsuccessful clients to create families. Along with her husband and three children, Irina has provided a home to over 75 children. That's right, 75 children. Her upcoming memoir will cover her life as an expert in 8 countries, as well as her honest account of her foster and adoptive journey. So let's get her in here and let's spill some tea and let me get her to correct how I'm saying her name.
It's all good. And the more you said it, the better it got.
I was just like, you told me in the back, and here I am. I can't even. It's been a long day.
I know. It's a very unusual name. So it's Irina. It's actually originally Russian, but my parents just saw it at the end of the movie on the trailers, liked it, and I'm now Irina Castellano. Thank you for having me.
So, Irina, you're originally from Germany, correct?
Correct, yeah. Married to an Aussie, and I have 3 kids from 3 different backgrounds. So there's a little bit of Singaporean, Bangladeshi, and Lebanese in my kids. So, yeah, so 2 are adopted and 1 is biological.
So let's get into it. How did it all start? Let's go back to the little girl and how you became a foster carer. Because I'm really open on this topic. A lot of people know my story. I was in foster care as a child, and my children were put into foster care system because of domestic violence. So I really want to have a heart-to-heart talk with you tonight on why you became a foster carer, because I want to know what it takes to be a foster carer. I'm not a foster parent, so I don't know, but you do, and I want to have a heart-to-heart talk with you tonight about that.
Great. Yeah, no, I didn't even know it was so real for you and such a connection. So yeah, I'm happy to hear any questions, any feelings you might have. You know, I've worked with many birth families. We've had, thanks God, a lot of reunifications with birth family, because this is where the kids belong. So kids always should be with birth family if at all possible. So it just needs to be safe.
There's different situations, right?
Yeah. And we actually, one of my the very first child that we took into our care was actually a family that just needed a helping hand. And they voluntarily, they said, look, I'm struggling. I need somebody for my kids. I'm an expat here in Australia. I have nobody. And my husband works. I need to go into a hospital. And this is also reasons why kids end up in foster care. And this is, the unknown part of it. A lot of people don't know that, people come forward and say, hey, I need help. And I'm doing this voluntarily, that my kids go into foster care. And then, once the family is back on their feet and everything is, all right, then the kids go back. And that's, a side that a lot of people don't know about.
Yeah. And I really want to thank you for that, because that was my situation. I needed help. Right. But it came to the point where you have to make a decision for your children, the well-being of your children. Sometimes, you have to say, as much as you want your children back at home, sometimes it's better for them to stay where they are, and build a relationship with that family. So did you ever have that situation where you had a mother or father put their kids into care and then want to build a relationship with you and kind of stay connected as well to their child?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we actually have one scenario where, the very first one, like I said, there was a beautiful Vietnamese family, and they gave me their son. I looked after him until the lady came back out of hospital, and then he went back, and they were incredibly grateful. And just, so that was like my first experience, and it was beautiful to start off like that, because I know that, initially when the kids are taken, I don't blame the birth family for not being if it is not in a voluntary scenario, for being a bit of anti-foster carers, and that's where you normally just stand back, let the caseworker deal with everything, and then when it's kind of calmed down, then you get involved. So the longer the kids stayed with us, the more then I would say, hey, I'm happy. So as long as there's not a safety issue, I'm happy to get to know birth family. I want to work with them because, I want them to see that the kids are doing fine. I want them to be relaxed. But we had one scenario where and I know that they don't mind me talking about this because we're actually very close. We had a little girl come into our care where she was actually only a week old, straight from hospital. And then we looked after her for 13 months, and then a grandmother was found to look after her and to be reunited with family. And we are actually in a really great. Sorry, we've got a few dogs here at the moment. We have a great relationship. So they actually come and see us. They live in another state. They come and see us once a year. They stay in our guest room. We go and see them, and they know that we've always only wanted the best for her, and they've embraced us as the extended family. And it's beautiful because the little girl, runs in here now and just feels at home. And then again, she knows where she lives, and she just feels really supported that we're still there for her. And yet, she's so happy with the whole scenario. So that's it.
And there was a reason why I asked you that, because I want to take the stigma off of the anger, right? Because there's a lot of people that when they hear foster care and they hear adoption, they get angry, they get aggressive, and there's a stigma, right? Of, oh, you just want to take my kids from me, you just want to have my. And that's why I wanted to put that out there. There are relationships, there are situations where the foster care families are connecting with the biological families, and working a relationship for that child. And I think that that's really important as well. And I've listened to a couple of podcasts that you've been on, and I'm like, oh my goodness, there's so much alignment, there's so much things that resonate that you have been through and that you've done. And I understand a little bit why you do it. So
I never went into fostering to expand my family, and to be honest, I also got really upset that when we did foster for a few years, then we went to Singapore. And before it used to be, there was temporary fostering, there was long-term fostering, and then there was, over there was adoption. It was all separate. Yeah. So when we first started to foster, we were only emergency short-term carers and, also respite carers. So in total, there are 4 different types. And so we only did that. And long-term care, or permanent care, as it's also called, was like totally somewhere else. And adoption, again, somewhere totally else. So it was all separate. Yeah. So when I then went with my husband to Singapore, came back, and we continued fostering, everywhere I went, other carers would say, and are you keeping this one? And are you keeping this one? And I got really upset because I said, sorry, I've never been in fostering to keep anybody's child. I only want birth families to have a break and to have their kids back. But if there is a child that, cannot go back, then that's a different story, because why would that kid need to keep hopping in the system and, having to constantly change and adapt to different homes if they could stay somewhere? So then we had this one girl that stayed with us. She came for 3-4 months, and at the age of 5, it was then, or at the age of her, she was 2, it was decided that okay, she won't be going back. And then I thought, oh, okay, now she's going to move on over to adoption. But thanks God, the government and everybody has learned from this that kids need permanency.
Yeah.
And now why would you rip her out of a home that she is comfortable with, that she is happy, we're happy? Why would you now change that? So that has changed. And then they asked us, they said, oh, would you like to take her on permanently till the age of 18, or, even maybe adopt? And we were like, what? Yeah, of course, if she can't go back, of course we will keep her and provide her with a home for the rest of her life. But we were really surprised. But then when we came back from Singapore and everybody was saying, oh, yeah, I'm like, no, I'm not. But it has now merged a bit, because what they're saying is that, you shouldn't really go into fostering to create a family or to expand your family. Having said that, if you stick around, if you come in and just have the attitude, I want to help these kids, I want to help these birth families, eventually there will be one that it might be the first one, might be the 10th one, might be the 20th, but eventually there will be a kid that cannot go home. Unfortunately, that's the scenario. And then it's fantastic if you say, you know what, I'm open to it. I'm open to it from the beginning. But, I don't want these kids to come here and call me mom and dad. No, none of that. Okay. I want these kids to come here, have a safe place. If it works out at home, great. Then, go back. That's the place where you belong. And if not, then, hey, you can't go back. I'm here to support you. Let's have contact with birth family. Let them know that you're safe. Let you be able to ask all the questions you may have. So the connection and open adoption, I find that super important. Absolutely. The connection should always be there.
Yep.
If birth family then doesn't show up or doesn't, communicate or doesn't meet, what can you do? Okay. But the child needs to know that you're open, that you're embracing birth family, you're not judging. Everybody has its, own things going through. And of course, often there is also even generational trauma, so it goes from one generation to another, and it's not easy to just fix in a few months' time. So, but if you can at least be there and say, hey, I'm happy for you to see birth family. If they don't show up here, I'm always here for you. Let's talk about it. Let's do, I find that so important.
And that's why I really wanted to have you on Tea Time, is because of my personal story. And I wanted people to know that there are people out there that really want to get you back home. They don't do it to build a family, but there's so much stigma around foster care and adoption that it turns it into a negative situation when it should be a positive situation, right?
Oh, and look, most foster stories, if you read anything in the paper, it's always the negative ones.
Yep.
We just here in Australia, we have 47,000 kids at any given time in foster care. But if, one story hits the headlines and that's what sells, then of course, oh my gosh, another child has been abused by a foster carer or something like that. It's always negative, there's never anything positive. You don't hear any good stories of reunifications, restorations, anything like that. And we have thousands of those every year,
Yeah,
but
and that's why I really wanted to have you here, because I want to really get people to have a different perspective of it, having myself live in this situation and understanding it was really deeply important for me to build a relationship, knowing that I was not going to be strong enough, and because of situations, it was better, and for the safety of my children. Sometimes we have to make choices, and we have to put our children always on, before ourselves. So I want to thank you for that, and I want to thank you for opening your home to over 75 kids. That's amazing. And for
yeah, it's still
adopting,
counting. It's probably another few on top of that. But also, it's not, as a foster carer, you don't sit here and you count the kids that come in. It was just that when we hit 20 years, my caseworker, actually, who has been with me for many years, actually did a summary. And he had actually some kids missing on his list. And I was like, no, actually, this one came as well, and this one, so then we looked into it and we started counting. It was like, wow, that many? It never even occurred to me, So it's only because when we hit the 20-year mark, so it's been 23 years now. And yeah, one kid only stayed one night, so he was being removed. He came to us, and the next day, grandma could take him. So, that was all good. And yeah, the longest is the one that when we adopted one from out of home care from here from Australia, because the other one was not living with us when we adopted her in Singapore.
And what has that done for you by adopting one of your foster care?
Oh, I've learned a lot. I'm continuously learning. I'm actually at the moment doing a graduate diploma in developmental trauma, because I'm still trying to learn and understand where these kids are coming from. And initially, I think here and there, I did take things personally when kids said something. And, if everybody ever thinks, oh, they're going to say, you're not my mom. I've never heard that. Okay. I've never heard that. But also parenting is not easy. Parenting in itself is a challenge. And I'm living now with 3 teenagers. So parenting in itself is one thing, but parenting kids that come with history that you don't know, it is challenging. And, I've got one child who can see her birth family, no problem, anytime. We can SMS, she's got her number, all of that. And then the other one where there is no contact to birth family, because it is from overseas, and they are not as open in Singapore about it, sharing your story and everything. So I have both, and they are so different. and yet they have so much in common. So I'm constantly learning from each of them and trying to navigate this, that, one has contact, the other one doesn't, and, one gets gifts, the other one doesn't. It's all these things that you need to navigate. And just, with identity and also culture and everything, you're constantly learning. I've learned so much through this adoption, to understand where kids are coming from and what's actually really, really important. I mean, I've taken so many things for granted from my family, like, routines, boundaries, all these things that you think are just so normal in every household. And then when these kids come in and they tell us it's totally different in their houses, that, it's mind-blowing. I admire people who, like you, are voluntarily saying, hey, I'm struggling, help me here. I love that. I think it's the best thing for these kids, in the sense that, that they are safe, they're okay, you get your life back on track. And, then you have a much better chance of surviving all of this. And then others who might be really upset at the beginning when the kids are taken, but once they get the time to breathe and just focus on themselves to get themselves better, that then they also often come around and they're like, hey, now I understand why they were taken. Now I understand that there's, especially with domestic violence, there's this vicious cycle where you always think, oh, now it's going to get better. And now, you're so full of hope, and then boom, it just doesn't happen. And I think it's super important for people to understand that this is supposed to give everybody a break, and for everybody to heal a bit, and then to be reunited, but never to lose contact, never to, be cut off, and I've never said to the kids, you're mine, or anything like that, because, hey, I always say, you didn't grow under my heart, you grew in it. That's my little
And that's
saying.
what I got from the stuff that when I went and did some research on all my guests, because I do that on all my guests. And that's why I put that in your video, the heart, because I got a lot of heart from what I heard and listening to you on other podcasts and I'm like, this woman has a big heart,
That's why I included it in my logo as well.
and I just find that we need more people that are honest and transparent, and saying, what, I'm not here to take you. I'm here if you need me, because there are different situations. Every situation is different. We have a question here for you, Irina. They want to know how many children you had at one time.
Oh, look, I think the one thing that I do remember was when we had only 2 kids ourselves, like one adopted, one biological, and they were actually, 3 and 2. And then we were asked to take in 2 kids, where then the next day they kind of said, oh, there was actually a twin that went into hospital, so can you take that one too? So we then ended up with 5 kids under 5.
Wow.
that was a really good one. I mean, we didn't even have enough car seats in the cars to go with all the kids, so we were a bit housebound for a week. But yeah, that was one thing. So I don't think it ever really went over 5. But most of the time we just take one, because we were also, but sometimes it's siblings where it's 2, but that was our only time we ever took 3 at any given time. Yeah. So we have a foster room down here with bunk beds, and then we have a guest room upstairs. So we always say that as an emergency, if kids are removed and, you have a sibling group of 4 or 5, we're happy to take them for a night or 2, but it never really came to that. So those 3 were at one time the highest number. So we had 5. Yeah.
So is there any training that's provided to the foster caregivers?
Oh, lots of training. All agencies do training, and there's so much also out there that you can do yourself. I mean, I'm a really keen lifelong learner, and there's so much on, if it is domestic violence, if it is autism, if it is ADHD. I mean, I'm constantly doing courses on pretty much everything, but even your agency normally requires you, here in Australia, they want you to do at least 2 sessions a year.
Okay.
But I did, 2 sessions a month, and I was still just, because also in these sessions you get to know other carers, and it's a really powerful group out there that, you just support each other. Because, I mean, as much as it's lovely how everybody has always been so welcoming at schools, and you have your mother group and all of that, but they don't fully get what it means to look after foster kids, because you're working with the system. You have, these kids have different behaviors. They have, so many things that are a bit out of the ordinary. And when you talk to other carers and you feel really heard and supported, that's super important as well. So it's not just even the training that you get, but also the support from other carers that I find absolutely vital.
And you provide some seminars in that as well for adoption and foster care, correct?
Well, this is where I work with. I'm with one agency as a carer, and then I help out at another agency as a casual. So I then run the nationally accredited shared lives training. That's what it's called here. So every person that wants to become a foster carer not only has the assessors coming to the house and doing, home visit and checking that the house is safe and going through your past to see, how stable you are, and also how many things happen in your life, to then see if you are if you have healed yourself enough to then look after somebody else and not to be triggered by things that these kids bring. So that's super important, the assessment itself. But then also you need to do a 2-day training that is compulsory in order to then be authorized. And in that, we just cover a lot of things about contact visits. We talk about, especially here in Australia, we talk a lot also about the stolen generation and the intergenerational trauma that community had to go through and is still going through. And because, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander kids are overrepresented in the out-of-home care system. So that is a big part to prepare people for that as well. And just a lot about how things will change when these kids come into your home, and what you can prepare and what you should have ready, and just also talking about certain behaviors that might come up. Because one of the big things I think is that kids are often not regulated well with their emotions. And that's another huge thing that I realized as an adoptive parent and as a parent in general, but also one now as a foster parent, that self-regulation is a key one. That, because of the role modeling that they had, that, if there is an issue, let's just hit, or let's just scream, let's just yell, that they do understand that you need to, first of all, identify the emotions that you go through, and then you name it, and then you find strategies to cope with that. So if a kid, loses it or has a little tantrum, then it's always about, okay, it's all right for you to be angry. I can see you're frustrated. So you name it, and then you try and work through it and say, all right, so the next time you're frustrated like this, no, we don't kick. No, we don't punish. We actually now find other strategies to do this. And that in itself is the bit that I think I've learned a lot from, that these kids just need to be guided on how to.
Well, parenting is hard, right? It's hard for foster carers. It's hard for parents. Parenting is not an easy job. It doesn't come with an instruction book. You try
social media doesn't help.
Yes. A bit of that, and you're like, oh, okay, this works. That doesn't work. Okay, I know my boundaries with you. I know, and I love that you said emotions, because children don't know how to express their emotions because they're so programmed, right? They're so like if the household is,
they copy right? What they see, so they are able to express their emotions, but maybe not necessarily in the appropriate way, so it all comes out, and it all comes out at the weirdest moments, and something triggers these kids, and you don't know what happened here just now. Why did this kid flip? But then you work it out, and you, just an example. One time my boy, all my kids, this is another really great thing that I think your children in your household learn so much from fostering these kids. Not just, that you can distract, that you can redirect with the emotions, like all of that. But also, my kids learned very fast that, oops, some kids, mom took drugs in utero, or okay, so this one doesn't see his parents because they're incarcerated, or dad was never in the picture, that was a one-night stand, or all these things that my kids, they grew up so fast by just watching what was going on. So they realized that they come from a really sheltered place and they were not exposed to any of this. And I think it's also really great life lessons that these kids are learning, And one time, my kids have always been very involved, and one time he threw a kid up, and like in the sense that just to catch it and play and have fun, and one kid, he was a 6-year-old, he just lifted him up and he started screaming like anything. We're like, oh, put him down, put him down. And then later we realized that they were saying, well, there were so many people coming and going in the houses, and if they were in the way, they were just picked up and thrown in the corner. So, it's like you don't often realize what is triggering these kids, and you find out later what it was. When you talk about it, you say, hey, now that you're, calmer, and can we talk about yesterday, what happened there? And, and then they talk about it and they say, well, it just reminded me, and this is, whatever. So to always think that behind every behavior, there is a reason.
Yes.
And sometimes it's just, even, bad attention is better than none. And
exactly, right? Sometimes because they seek attention so badly because of situations, that they'll react badly because it's getting them attention, because that's what they're seeking.
That's also a form of neglect, if you're constantly being ignored, and because, if parents are preoccupied with addiction or, all kinds of things going on in their lives and they've never really felt hurt, then either they go super quiet or they play up. And to be honest, I like to rather work with those that play up, because you can see what's going on and you can start to name it. The ones that are super quiet and withdrawn and in the corner and seem so placid and so easygoing, those are the ones that worry me a whole lot more, because then the hurt. And when you talk about when kids, even my kids, here and there you get bullied at school. So for me, I always try and teach my kids that hurt kids. It is kids that are already so hurt inside that they feel the need to now hurt others to make themselves feel better. And when you start to always bring that bit in, I think the fostering has taught my kids, hopefully, quite a bit of empathy and compassion towards other people. And they often come, like especially the last one, she would come home and say, oh, mommy, there's this kid that always sits by himself at lunch, so I go up and I ask, it's like it makes them really much more aware of what goes on in other people. And I think that's also another really great side gift that you can give your family, to actually understand that everybody just needs a bit of a helping hand. And why not do it with kids that you have not been asked to be born into these situations? And they also just need a helping hand, just like the parents just need an extra helping hand.
Well, I think you're also giving them a legacy too, to understand people, right? By building that empathy of bringing the different situations in their home. You're teaching the children, your own children, that not everybody has a good home, not everyone comes from a good background. So we have to have that openness and kindness of understanding a little bit more. And I think maybe that actually helps, like siblings, that look at each other and say, oh, we should watch ourselves. Like, we should watch out for each other, because some children don't have that one to watch out for. And I want to get into this. There's over 4,000 children that are in motels because they don't have homes, correct, in Australia?
No, I wouldn't say that there are 4,000 in motel rooms. In our New South Wales now, we have a few hundreds. But all over Australia, we're looking for 4,000 homes. So that was announced by, Adopt Change. So that's the figure that is going around at the moment, that we need 4,000 safe homes. But it's not all of them that are in motel rooms now.
So how does that work for them to be in motels? Like, are they being cared by the hotel management? Like,
no, they would be with youth workers and caseworkers.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, they are in Australia itself, like other countries. I don't know how it is in Canada, but a lot of countries have orphanages. In Australia, that was abolished because of the past history and the really negative things that happen in these orphanages. Unfortunately, that is also often the case in many other countries, but here in Australia there are no orphanages. So which means that the kids are removed and you're called one foster care after another, and for whatever reason they can't take the kids, then the next option is to put them in motel rooms and then to have supervision there. But of course that is not ideal. They need to be in family settings. They don't need to be just in a one bedroom there. So that's why the minute I heard that, because that is fairly fairly recent compared to the 23 years that I've been going. And ever since I heard that, I thought, okay, I got to do something here. Got to do something. And I would love to work also with people who would like to create families, but for them to be open and say, okay, I'm happy to foster, and I'll just stick around long enough until a kid cannot be returned uh, to birth family, and to just say, we want to have kids in our home. Let's have kids in our home and create it all a little bit differently, and yeah, just be there for these kids. And eventually, I would think that there is a child that cannot be restored, unfortunately.
So, Irina, I want to ask you, if I ask you what your tea is tonight, what tea are you serving to the audience?
Well, for the T for me stands really for transformation, transform these kids' lives into safe and happy, to create happy memories so that they have more happy memories than the negative ones. And the E definitely for empathy, to show empathy to each kid's story, and to be non-judgmental and just really just listen to what they have to say, and actively listen to really take in what they're saying. And the A for me would always be attitude, that we change our attitudes to kids in care, because they didn't ask to be in care, and to just be open-minded to create. I mean, these kids come to us and they have never had play dates. They've never had sleepovers, all these things that we take for granted as we all had it in our childhood, or most of us. And I just think it's incredible to then see kids that when I say, oh, you getting along with this one, shall we invite them for a play date? And they're like, I can bring them home. I can, wow, it's like, and it's so beautiful to see. And then for them to be so proud and bring them in, and it's like, and if you ask, I had a 13-year-old, and I said, hey, listen, in 4 weeks, it's your birthday. What would you like to do? And he was like, who knows where I'll be in 4 weeks? And I said, you're kidding. It's like, all right, let's just assume you're here in 4 weeks. So what would you like to do? And he's like, I don't know. What is a birthday party? I never had one. 13. And it's we just take it so for granted that these kids have and you can make such a difference in just saying, all right, then let's celebrate you. Let's do, what would you like to do? What would be your dream birthday? And they're like, well, I don't know, invite a few people. All right, how many? And let's get into it. And it's like, it was so nice, so just to see that, and these proud moments for him to, have kids over and to have a cake and the whole thing. It was just beautiful to watch. And those are the moments why, we do what we do.
And I love that you're saying that, because we do take so much for granted. Sometimes we forget the little things matter. Like a birthday party. And I really want to thank you again, like, for everything that you've done, Irina, because having gone through what I've gone through, and being even in foster care as a child, I had that, like, where am I going to be in 4 weeks? Am I, like, you have that, because you never know, are you going home? Are you going to grandma and grandpa's? Is an aunt and uncle coming to get you? Are you staying in this home? So I really am personally attached and connected with the work that you're doing, and I want to thank
I would
you
love to hear your story. Why don't you write your story? I would love to read that.
Oh, my story's in many books, but I want to get into your. I want to get into your book.
I need to do my research. There we go. I will Google that now.
I want to get into. I want to get into your book, because you have your book in the back here. Elevate Your Performance. What is that all about?
Yeah, look, the title doesn't fit to my chapter whatsoever. I did a coaching certification, so I'm a certified coach now, and I would like to, coach people on their journey and purpose in life. And if I can combine it with fostering, brilliant. But I then had a chance to be with 9 other coaches in a book, and all of them did it on coaching. So that's where the Elevate Your Performance comes from. And I said, no, if I can raise awareness, I want to raise awareness for fostering and adoption. And that's where my chapter is the odd one out. But this one is available. But I'm also writing my memoirs, and also there's a carer book that is coming out with other carers that we wrote a book together. That's coming out in probably April, somewhere around there. But my personal memoirs, I'm also in the middle of writing that, because I would just like to share that with people to really not be afraid to just give it a go. And there's never a perfect time to have a child, in my opinion.
Right?
No, we also wanted, I mean, I know that other people are maybe waiting. I mean, we've gone through IVF to have our biological child, so I know that is a journey for people as well. But I really think there's always reasons not to have kids, or thinking, oh, not right now and later. And the same with fostering. People are thinking about it, and I'm just saying, go for it.
Yeah.
Just help these kids. If you can help one kid this year and 2 kids next year, and it's not about numbers, it's about the quality care that you provide for these children. And if you can make a difference in one child's life, then that is already all I want. I just want
That
more people.
I love that. I love that because we got to stop looking at numbers. We got to stop looking, and we got to really look at the child. The child matters, not the number. The number. Let's take the number away and let's put the child.
Yeah,
And I
when we
really,
got
really
our
thank
last
you.
one, when she came to us, and we knew that she needed a bit of attention too, we didn't have any extra kids for, I think, 2 years or something. And
Wow.
only when we felt she was really settled and everything was okay, then we said, okay, how do you guys feel? Shall we continue? And they were like, yeah, okay, let's take another one. And so it needs to fit. And yeah, it's never been about numbers for us. It was always that we take a kid. Then if they call and they say, can you take another? We evaluate, can we not? Well, okay, yeah, all right, let's say. But it was mostly sibling groups anyway. So we've never really had kids that were from 2 different families that we took in at one time. And yeah, that's the way it should be. It's the quality care that you're trying to provide for this one kid. And then, if it suits you and you think you can handle another one and the child is fine with it, because that should always be part of it as well, then yeah, okay, because you all learn from each other. And sometimes I feel, having 3 or 4 that all play together is a whole lot easier sometimes than just one. So it needs to work for everybody. So yeah, no, really appreciate the time here that you dedicate.
So Irina, you also talk about adoptions. So what's the process of adoption? What's the time
Well,
frame?
in New South Wales now, it has definitely been a bit more streamlined. Not in all
Okay.
states and territories in Australia, but in New South Wales, there are some agencies that now give you authorization for fostering and adoption at the same time. So, which
Okay.
means you do the fostering training, but you also do an open adoption seminar, and then you are authorized for both. So, which means that yes, we know that you are more likely to want, a permanent placement, but you will do the fostering along the line. And if sometimes you get a child, within a few hours you get it, and nobody knows what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
And then a few months, years, up to 2 years, a child can be in foster care, but then it needs to be decided what's happening. Is it being restored, or will it go for adoption? These are the guidelines now in Australia, so it has been definitely more streamlined. If a child can be restored within 3 months, 6 months, great. But then after 24 months, it needs to be decided. And if it's not being restored, then it will either go for guardianship, permanent care, or adoption. And this is where this then comes in. So it has been definitely more streamlined, and they have learned over the years that permanency is the best thing for the child. So you don't want them hopping in the system. You don't want them going from one home to another. You want to give them permanency, and this is what adoption does.
Well,
And also
and it saves a lot of stress and trauma as well, because if you're bouncing the children from home to home, they never feel comfortable, right? They're just like, okay, I'm here for one night, then I'm at another place for another night,
Yeah, they might feel comfortable, but they will not feel secure. And this
Yeah.
is what we're trying to do. These kids are in need of a safe home, but they also are in need of permanency. They need to know what's happening in the future. I think COVID has shown us that, there's so much anxiety about, will I have a job? Will I have this and that? But can you imagine living with this as a child, not knowing where your
Yeah.
home is? Not knowing who's going to look after you, who's going to be there when you turn. I mean, there's a lot of anxiety also for kids to turn 18 and then think, oops, now I'm leaving the foster care system. Well, what happens next? I mean, which parent now has kids leaving at the age of 18? Not many, because, the cost of living and everything
They're
else
still living.
is going to go, So, I mean, kids are normally there. So if you had a kid for a while in your care, then why would the birthday of turning 18 change anything? I mean, for us, if we would have a kid at that age, then yeah, well, you stay here just like all other kids. And
Mhm.
once we know what you want to do and where you want to go, then that's the time. But not just because you turn 18.
I want to get into the IVF. I
Mhm.
heard your story. I listened to one of the podcasts, and you had spoken about losing a child, and I'm very sorry for that. Again, connection. I lost a daughter through abuse and stillborn.
Mhm.
And when you had mentioned that, I was like, there is really a reason why we're connecting and why she's coming on Tea Time. There's, the alignment of the way that the universe works to make people come into our lives, right? So, what would you like to change with the IVF?
Yeah, see, I mean, and how many people talk about this? Not many
Right?
people. Okay, not many people talk about the IVF journey. Not many people talk about miscarriage. I remember standing at a playground with a lady who had 4 kids running around, and then I don't know how, but we got into this, and because I had all mixed kids there, and she said, "Oh, so how does this all work?" And I said, "Oh, fostering," and she said, "Oh, yeah, we struggle to fall pregnant," and I was like, "You've just got 4 kids here." She said, "Oh, but I had 10 miscarriages," and I was like, "What?" It's like unless you talk
Yeah, we
about
don't
it,
talk
you
about
don't
it.
know. You don't know. So, and this is where, when I saw all these kids now in motel rooms, and I'm thinking so many people have gone through what we have gone through in the sense that we wanted kids and then it didn't happen. Uh, there must be a way to connect IVF clinics with, we're not trying to take the work and the money away from the IVF clinics, but for IVF clinics to actually say, you know what, you know, give people time to grieve that maybe they weren't successful or they could only have one kid through IVF, but they would love to have more kids. That you then say, all right, then let's look into fostering, let's look into adoption, maybe 6 months, 12 months down the track. The IVF clinic sends something to these people saying, hey, have you ever thought about fostering? You need time to grieve and to
Yeah.
accept what's possible naturally or through IVF in your life, but then to say, all right, I mean, we want to fill our home with kids. Well, there are plenty of them out there, unfortunately, plenty of them out there. And even if you just say, I'm going into this on a temporary basis, or I'm happy to have both temporary or long term, and let's just see what happens and what develops. And there should be plenty of people out there. I mean, to think that we are in this country and you also have single parents that have one child but always wanted another. Why not foster? Why not adopt? You have people in gay communities that are going through so much with surrogates and all of that. But at the end of the day, this kid needs a home filled with love and people willing to adapt their life to a child in their lives. And yeah, I think we need to really rethink how we can find homes for these kids.
I appreciate you saying that, Irena. Because there are people that want more kids but can't have more kids. Why not look into fostering, or even people that can't have children? And open your homes.
Yeah.
Uh, I and we don't talk about it, and this is why I have my platform, because I want to bring these topics to the table that says, why are we not talking about it? Why are we not finding these homes? Why are we not finding solutions?
Yeah.
When you're right there, you're saying, hey,
Mhm.
let's open the door. You want a child, okay, foster a child, even if it's just temporary. You're gonna at least open that difference and make that difference, right? So I really want to thank you for bringing that to the table. And I want to, I really feel connected to you, Irina, because we have so much similarities in the stories, that not through foster care and all that, but I mean, just personal, woman to woman. You
Mhm.
lost a child, I lost a daughter, through stillborn. And when you had mentioned that on a podcast, it kind of made me choke. I was like, oh, how do I prepare for this tea time? Because I knew
Mhm.
it was going to be a very, very heart to heart tea time for me. um
Yeah, you're not replacing by taking in other people's kids and helping them. You're not replacing the one that you've lost. You're not replacing, anything. You're just opening your home to other kids, and you get the joy of having kids around you. And this is all I ever wanted. I always wanted to. I mean, I've been babysitting since the age of 12. I've always had a connection with kids. And at the age of 13, I read the book A Child Called It by Dave Pelzer, and I thought, what, fostering? Never even heard of it. So immediately I then, at the age of 13, I said, one day I want to have my own kids, but I also want to foster and maybe even adopt one day. And yeah, it took me a while to find my husband. And then when I did find him, and I was actually coming here to Australia and I couldn't work because of my visa status. And then I saw all these local papers with ads, become a foster care. And I was like, oh, that's what I've always wanted to do. So my husband didn't know anything about it. He traveled 200 days a year for his work. And I was actually calling him when he was in China. And I said, oh, darling, how about fostering? And he was like, I thought we were trying for our own. Yeah. But I always wanted to foster. And he really only went along with it because he wanted me to be happy and occupied. and yeah, then we did it, and he was okay with it. And then I talked about adoption, and I said, well, maybe this is something. And he was like, oh, I don't know if I can love somebody else's kids like my own. And I said, well, just go, we'll do the fostering, and then maybe and then we heard about the little kid that needed a home. She wasn't living with us, and this history. And then when I was actually pregnant, well, it's through the IVF, and we had continued with that, and I fell pregnant. He was really worried that he wouldn't have enough love to give because he just loved our daughter so much. And I was like, oh, just don't worry, when he comes out. And and then we always wanted 3 any which way, and it just meant to be. So when we continued fostering, and then the one that we thought was only staying 3-4 months, and she came up for adoption, we was like, well, that's but now for us, that's it. And I want other people to do the same, and just to just be open to it, and just say, hey, whichever kid comes for however long, it's fine. And if you're happy to do long-term or permanent care or adoption, guardianship, whatever it may be, then it's also meant to be, so just to be open to it. But unfortunately, we've got kids enough to fill. And I know it's the same in America and so many other places. And yeah, should have done a bit of research for Canada there. I'm sure.
Yeah, the numbers are just, there's so much. But I really, for anybody that's listening to the tea time out there tonight, and who will share this tea time with other members of your family who are looking maybe into fostering because you want to see how you can make a difference, because fostering does make a difference. You do impact lives. I had some really amazing people that took care of my children, so I'm grateful for them. And we got to make a relationship and make it work for the children. It might have not always worked for the parents, but it worked for the children, and the children were safe and secure. So that's what matters at the end of the day. Irina,
I'm glad it was a positive story and good outcome for you as well. Very good.
Absolutely. And my children are still in my life, and we have some really good memories that a lot of people never had. It's like you said, there was a lot of negative stories. Let's turn those negative stories into positive stories. We have to really make a difference. So and that's why I have you here, because you're a positive story. You've made a huge impact in so many children's lives, and you've got your family involved. Like, it was a family activity of making a difference with other people, and showing the empathy and that as well, right? It was a journey for the family.
Yeah, and my kids have taught these kids so much, and they've learned so much from them. So it was really an all-around such big experience. Yeah. No.
Well, and it kind of gives them a friendship as well, right? Like, we don't talk about the friendships that the other children get. Like, they come into and they go through, like, oh, okay, they're only here for a little bit. So there's a lot of adjustments for the family as well. I want to wrap up tonight's tea time with favorite color and one word, and your final message to everybody. So your favorite color that you gave me was orange. Why orange?
I just think it fits so nicely into my logo. And it is a bright color, and it's not just, it is about love, but maybe also a bit faded, because it doesn't have to be blood related. It is, it can be just really a deep, good, strong orange that love can come from all kinds of places, and you don't have to be blood related to show love to other people. So,
well, it's like a juicy blood orange, right? They're good and they're sweet, And I asked you for one word, and you gave me the word helpful. Why helpful?
I think the whole world would be such a better place if we are just helpful for one another. I mean, I've often got my kids saying, oh, why do you need to take the neighbor's bin in? Or why do you need to do it? I'm like, What does it cost me? Nothing, absolutely nothing. And being kind and helpful is just, I don't know, it's just absolutely, something that has always served me well. I don't think that I've ever gone short, because the more you give, the more you get back. It is just like that. And I mean, just by having the best of intentions and wanting to do the right thing. And yes, here and there, maybe I got burned, but those 3, 4 times are nothing compared to the thousands of times that I've, really gotten
Yeah.
so much more back. And for me, I will never change that. I will always try and be helpful. And that's what I feel I'm doing with the fostering. I'm helping other people to get back on their feet. And that's the whole idea.
Well, you are making a huge difference. So if anybody would like to reach you to have them on their podcast, or just talk to you and get to know a little bit more on fostering and adoption, how can they find you?
Yeah, on my website, I've now finally got a website up, irinacastellano.com.au, or find me on LinkedIn. I'm not as much on Facebook, and I'm still working out the Instagram bit, but yeah, I'm more than happy to chat with anybody for, let's say half an hour for free, where you can just find out if fostering is something for you or not. I would love to do that. Let's get
And
going in any country.
oh, well, look at that. See, any country, she's opened the door. And if anybody would like to get your book that you have there, Elevate Your Performance, where can they get that?
Oh, that's. I'm also, to be very honest, I've got the ebook. So if anybody contacts me and wants to read it, just contact me and I'll send it through for free.
So,
That's
any
fine.
final words before we wrap up tonight?
I just so appreciate the time. Thank you, Miss Liz, and thank you to anybody who tuned in and who took the time to listen. And if fostering is not for you, and it's not, if there are so many empty nesters out there, there might be interest. It might be your sister-in-law. It might be your, anybody that you hear that says, "Oh, I would just love to have kids in my home," and something is not working out the way you thought, then consider fostering.
Well, thank you so much. And thank you so much to the viewers and listeners out there. Thank you for the people that sent questions in, and that uh, as we were talking and having discussions, some of the questions that were coming in, you had already answered as you were sharing. So I didn't feel that we needed to ask those questions because you were answering them as you were sharing. So again, I want to thank all the viewers and supporters out there. I want to thank everybody that is actually supporting Miss Liz and just giving a quick little share and giving a quick subscribe on the YouTube channel. Ring that bell. You'll be notified all the time when there's a live tea time. I try to bring as much as I can, as many topics as I can, and I try to bring in topics that I resonate with, that I've gone through myself, so I can get an understanding and a different perspective as well. So, Joanna, I want to thank you for all of the work you're doing. I want to thank your family for doing what they've done and the sacrifices they've made as well. And I want to thank the people out there who are fostering. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for all the work you've done, because there are times when there are mom and dads that need a little help. So I want to thank you all. I want to thank everyone who has opened their hearts and doors for our children at times. So, and I want to thank all of everyone that tuned in for this morning show, this afternoon show, and this evening show. This morning we had amazing, amazing awakening, reawakening you, Jenny Mannion, and then we had Ruth G. Sanchez from the United States, and she's with Project Cure. So, and then tonight we're foster care and adoption. So that's what we do. We serve 3 different types of tea, and all in one day. So again, I want to thank everyone, and I will see everyone next week for 3 new strong cup of tea. And stay tuned, because on the 23rd of April, I will be releasing all of May's guests, and you can reach out to all of my guests. Reach out to Ivana, and thank you again, Ivana, for don't leave. I'm just going to wrap up the live, and we're going to get you a good farewell and stay contacted. And again, thank you so much for everything you've done.
Thank you very much for having me, Miss Liz, so far. And I would like to thank, the birth families out there that entrust their kids into our care, because I know it's hard and it wasn't voluntary for most of them. But please trust me that there's a lot of foster carers who do amazing things every single day, and they have the best interest of your kids at heart. It's, really, I mean, there's good and bad everywhere, unfortunately, but the majority is really helpful to the T to actually really help these families get back on their feet.
Well, we couldn't do it without people like you as well. So thank you.
Thank you.